Ibrahim Traoré, the young and fearless military leader, was assassinated while aboard a military helicopter. Today, we dive deep into the shocking circumstances of his untimely death, uncover the political storm swirling in its aftermath, and explore what this means not only for his country, but for the entire African continent. Join us as we unravel the story behind this tragic event, the man who dared to challenge the old order, and the powerful forces now exposed in the shadows. This is more than news. It's a call to understand, to reflect, and to act. There are days that change the course of history, moments when the light of hope is suddenly extinguished in an instant, leaving a nation stunned in a world grappling with disbelief. The day Ibrahim Traoré was assassinated was one such moment, a day that began with promise and ended in tragic silence. Traoré, the symbol of resilience and unwavering leadership, boarded a military helicopter for what was supposed to be a routine mission, an inspection of troops stationed in a volatile region. The sun rose steadily that morning, casting a golden glow over the landscape, as if the world itself was preparing to witness a new dawn of change. But instead of progress, this flight would become a journey into darkness. The helicopter took off, carrying with it the hopes and dreams of millions who saw in Traoré a chance for real transformation. No one could have predicted the betrayal that would unfold high above the ground, hidden from the eyes of those who trusted him most. The tragedy was swift and brutal. Eyewitnesses later described the eerie sound of gunfire echoing inside the aircraft before the helicopter spiraled out of control and crashed in a remote area, cutting short the life of a leader who had dared to challenge the status quo. In those harrowing moments, the future seemed to shatter along with the helicopter's wreckage. The man who stood fearless in the face of corruption, who believed deeply in the power of his people, was violently taken from them. It is difficult to comprehend such loss. A leader so young, so full of promise, reduced to a memory in an instant. But even in death, Traoré's story does not end. His assassination shines a harsh light on the reality that true leadership often comes with unimaginable risks. It reminds us that fighting for justice is not for the faint of heart. It requires courage to face enemies, not just outside, but within. The day of his assassination challenges us to reflect on the price of change. Ibrahim Traoré was not just a casualty of a physical attack. He was a victim of the deep-rooted fears that threaten progress: fear of accountability, fear of losing power, and fear of the unknown. The forces that conspired against him were not random. They were the same forces that resist every step toward freedom and truth. Yet his death is also a call to awaken the spirit of resilience in all of us. It demands that we refuse to let darkness triumph over light, that we carry forward the mission he embraced so passionately. The very act meant to silence him must instead amplify his voice across borders and generations. When we remember that flight into darkness, we see more than tragedy. We see a powerful lesson. It teaches us about the fragility of life, the fragility of leadership, and the strength required to rise above betrayal. Traoré's last flight was a metaphor for the struggle so many face in pursuit of justice: turbulence, danger, and uncertainty at every turn. But it is also a testament to unwavering faith in a cause greater than oneself. This day should inspire us all to stand firm in our convictions, to protect those who dare to lead with integrity, and to never forget that every great movement is born from sacrifice. The darkness that descended that day is not the end, but a challenge, one that calls on every citizen, every believer in change, to carry the torch forward. For in the shadow of loss, true leadership is reborn, stronger and more determined than ever. When a leader like Ibrahim Traoré is abruptly torn from the world, the immediate aftermath is never just about grief. It is about a storm that shakes the very foundation of a nation's soul. The assassination did not just claim a life. It unleashed a whirlwind of suspicion, uncertainty, and fear. This was no ordinary tragedy. It was a calculated strike that revealed the darker forces lurking beneath the surface, forces that thrive in shadows, that manipulate from behind the curtains, and that view genuine leadership as a threat to their own grip on power. The political storm that followed Traoré's death was a brutal reminder that the path of change is often met with resistance, not only from outside enemies but from within, from those who fear losing their privileges and positions. This storm of suspicion cast long, chilling shadows over the nation, and even the world watched with bated breath, wondering who could be trusted, who was responsible, and what the future held. In the hours and days after the assassination, whispers began to fill the corridors of power. Rumors of betrayal from within the military ranks, fingers pointing to factions that felt threatened by Traoré's rising influence. The very people who once pledged loyalty seemed to be caught in a dangerous game of power and control. Some argued that his nationalist stance, his refusal to bow to foreign interests, made him a target of international players who preferred the status quo of exploitation and puppetry. This was no simple murder. It was a political earthquake shaking not just a nation, but the fragile geopolitical landscape of an entire continent. The fear was palpable. How many more leaders would fall? How many dreams would be crushed under the weight of greed and conspiracy? Yet amid this darkness, a fierce light began to burn. The light of those who refused to be silenced, who demanded truth and justice regardless of the risks. It is in moments like these that we must remember. True change is never comfortable. It threatens, it disrupts, it challenges the powerful. Ibrahim Traoré was a threat because he dared to imagine a new reality. A reality where sovereignty was respected, where the people's voice mattered more than the ambitions of a few. And the shadows that moved to end his life reveal the stakes of that fight. But even as the storm raged, the people rose. Protests erupted not just in the capital, but across the country, fueled by a collective refusal to accept silence or submission. Social media exploded with calls for justice. Hashtags became digital battle cries, and the spirit of resistance grew stronger with each passing day. The political storm was fierce, but it was also a testament to the power of a united people who refused to let fear dominate their future. This storm of suspicion and shadows is a harsh lesson, but also a call to courage. It shows us that the fight for justice will always come with enemies, with obstacles designed to derail progress. But it also teaches us that these forces can be confronted, not with violence, but with unity, with relentless demand for transparency, and with unwavering hope. Ibrahim Traoré's assassination is a tragic chapter, but it is not the end of the story. The political storm may rage, but the dawn will come for those who stand steadfast in truth. His legacy compels us to look beyond the shadows, to seek the light of justice, and to remember that even in the darkest moments, the voice of the people is the most powerful force of all. In the wake of tragedy and turmoil, it's vital to remember that Ibrahim Traoré was not just a headline or a symbol. He was a man with dreams, struggles, and an unbreakable spirit that inspired millions. To truly honor his legacy, we must look beyond the public image and uncover the heart of the person who dared to challenge a broken system. Traoré was a leader born from the very soil he sought to transform. Raised in humble circumstances, he experienced firsthand the hardship and injustice that plagued his nation. But rather than accept this reality, he chose to fight against it with every fiber of his being. What made him extraordinary was not his rank or power, but his empathy and his unwavering belief in the possibility of change. He was a soldier who understood that true strength lies not in domination, but in service. Service to the people, to truth, and to justice. His humility was striking. Despite the heavy burden of leadership and the constant threats that surrounded him, Traoré remained grounded. Stories from those who knew him describe a man who listened more than he spoke, who walked among his people with a gentle but determined presence. He did not seek glory, he sought progress. In a world where leaders often distance themselves from those they govern, Traoré bridged that gap. He believed in the power of connection, in the importance of understanding the pain and hopes of ordinary citizens. This made him more than a leader. It made him a beacon of hope for those who felt forgotten. His words were not empty promises. They were commitments rooted in lived experience and an unshakable resolve to create a nation where every voice mattered. Traoré's vision was both bold and deeply human. He imagined a country where corruption was dismantled, where the youth were empowered to build a future free from fear and poverty, where peace was not a fleeting dream but a lasting reality. He challenged the cynical narrative that change was impossible. Instead, he showed through his actions that transformation begins with courage. The courage to stand up when it's easier to stay silent. The courage to lead when the path is fraught with danger. In interviews, he spoke passionately about the need for integrity and leadership, famously declaring, "Our strength is not in weapons or power, but in the trust of our people." These words encapsulate the essence of who he was, a leader who understood that legitimacy comes from serving the collective good, not from imposing authority. His story motivates us all because it reminds us that leadership is not about comfort or prestige. It is about sacrifice, resilience, and a relentless commitment to justice. Ibrahim Traoré's life challenges every one of us to consider what kind of leaders we need and what kind of people we must be to create real, lasting change. In a world often dominated by cynicism and despair, his legacy shines as a reminder that hope is not naive. It is revolutionary. The man behind the legend teaches us that greatness is born from humility, that true power lies in serving others, and that even in the darkest times, the human spirit can rise stronger. To remember Ibrahim Traoré is to rekindle the flame of courage within ourselves and to believe without hesitation that a better future is possible. The assassination of Ibrahim Traoré was not just the end of a life. It was a seismic shockwave that rippled through an entire nation, shaking its foundations and thrusting it into a state of uncertainty and profound grief. In the hours following the tragedy, the streets of the capital and cities across the country erupted with raw emotion, a mixture of sorrow, anger, and an unyielding demand for justice. The people had lost not only a leader, but a symbol of hope, a champion for their dreams and struggles. This grief was palpable, not quiet or contained, but loud and insistent. It echoed in protests, in cries for transparency, and in the digital spaces where millions shared their heartbreak and resolve. The hashtag #Justice for Traoré became a rallying cry, a digital beacon that connected the voices of the oppressed and the hopeful alike. In this moment of collective pain, a nation found its unity strengthened, even as it teetered on the edge of chaos. But the aftermath was more than just public mourning. It was a test of resilience, a test that demanded every citizen, every institution, and every leader to confront the fragile state of the country. The void left by Traoré's death raised urgent questions about stability and the future of leadership. Could the nation hold together without the guiding force of its young revolutionary? Would the forces that had orchestrated his assassination seize the moment to deepen division and sow further discord? The fear was real, but so was the determination. The people understood that this moment was a crossroads. They could allow despair to fracture their country, or they could channel their grief into a powerful movement for justice and renewal. The protests were not just reactions. They were affirmations of a collective will to protect the legacy of a man who believed in the power of the people. This period of tension also revealed the deep fissures within the country's political and social fabric. The assassination exposed vulnerabilities, gaps where corruption, fear, and mistrust had taken root. Yet amid this fragile environment, the spirit of the people proved unbreakable. Communities came together, bridging divides in a shared mission to honor Traoré's vision. Ordinary citizens became activists, neighbors became allies, and hope became a unifying force that transcended ethnicity, class, and political affiliation. The nation was on edge, yes, but it was also awakening to its own strength. The grief was a catalyst for action, igniting a flame that no assassin's bullet could extinguish. The aftermath teaches us a vital lesson about the power of resilience in the face of tragedy. It shows that while leaders may fall, the ideas they stand for can become immortal when carried by a determined people. The nation's edge was not a place of defeat, but a precipice from which it could leap toward transformation. Ibrahim Traoré's death was a call to rise, not just to remember, but to build. It challenges us all to see beyond the sorrow, to channel our pain into purpose, and to stand united against the forces that seek to divide and silence. The true strength of a nation is measured not by the ease of its days, but by how it rises after the darkest nights. In this moment of loss, the nation stands poised to write the next chapter, a chapter defined by courage, justice, and the unbreakable spirit of its people. The assassination of Ibrahim Traoré resonates far beyond the borders of his nation. It sends a powerful shock through the entire continent of Africa, a continent whose history is marked by struggles for sovereignty, justice, and true self-determination. Traoré was not just a national figure. He was a symbol of a new generation of African leaders who dared to challenge the old systems of power that have long held the continent hostage to corruption, foreign interference, and division. His death is a stark reminder of the fragile line between hope and despair that many African nations walk. It forces us to ask, what does this mean for the future of African leadership, for the continent's quest to reclaim its destiny? The implications are profound and demand our attention, not as distant observers, but as engaged participants in the story of a continent on the brink of transformation. Ibrahim Traoré's vision was rooted in the belief that Africa's power lies in its people, in their resilience, their creativity, and their unity. He rejected the notion that African nations must forever be pawns in global power games. Instead, he championed sovereignty that respected the voice and rights of ordinary citizens. His assassination is a chilling signal that those entrenched interests who resist this vision remain powerful and willing to use violence to maintain control. But it also serves as a rallying cry to every African who dreams of a continent free from neo-colonial exploitation and political manipulation. His death exposes the dangers of complacency and the urgent need for vigilance, courage, and solidarity across borders. The broader implications extend to the political landscape of Africa as a whole. Traoré's leadership represented a break from a pattern of governance often characterized by weak institutions and leadership beholden to external forces. His bold stance inspired countless young Africans to believe that change is possible and that leadership can be a force for genuine progress rather than personal enrichment. The void left by his assassination risks creating instability, but it also opens the door for a new generation of leaders to rise, leaders who carry forward his message of accountability, justice, and empowerment. Africa's future depends on how its people respond to this moment of crisis. Will they allow fear to paralyze them, or will they embrace the challenge to build stronger, more inclusive nations? This moment also challenges the international community to rethink its role in African affairs. Too often, foreign powers have influenced African politics for their own interests, undermining local leadership and stoking divisions. Traoré's assassination forces a reckoning with the consequences of such interference. It demands respect for African sovereignty and support for homegrown solutions to the continent's challenges. For Africans, this is a call to unite beyond national borders, to forge partnerships rooted in mutual respect and shared vision rather than exploitation. Ultimately, the broader implications of Traoré's assassination are a call to action for Africans and the world alike. It reminds us that the fight for justice, dignity, and self-determination is ongoing, and that the sacrifices of one leader can ignite a continent-wide movement. Ibrahim Traoré's legacy is a beacon, urging us to rise above fear and division, to stand in solidarity, and to believe in the power of collective action to shape a future where Africa's true potential is finally realized. The road ahead is challenging, but his life and death prove that courage and conviction can move mountains, and that the spirit of a people can never be extinguished. The assassination of Ibrahim Traoré was meant to silence a voice, to break a movement, to dim a light, but instead it has ignited a fire that no bullet can extinguish. His legacy challenges each of us to stand fearless in the face of injustice, to demand truth when lies try to take hold, and to believe deeply that real change begins with unwavering courage. The future belongs to those who refuse to surrender hope. So ask yourself, how will you carry the torch forward? How will you rise when the world tries to push you down? Because the spirit of Ibrahim Traoré lives on, in every call for justice, in every act of resistance, and in the heart of every person who dares to dream of a better tomorrow. The story doesn't end here. It's only just beginning.